So if you'd love to start from the beginning, where you grew up.
I grew up in Birmingham, Alabama, on the northwest part of town, and a little small community. And most of the kids are a working class community, and my father was a barber, and my mother didn't do work outside the house at first. Later, she was a cook. Once she realized that we'd probably be going to college, I have a brother and a sister, and all three of us went to college. I'm the oldest, about a year apart, all three of us. And so it was one of those communities where people work hard and you just enjoy it. And I really didn't know, a lot of people know from birth almost, like you talk to them in school. I was going to be a doctor ever since I knew. No, I didn't do that. But I was interested in, became very interested in a little plastic thing at the Walmart, or at the Walmart, you hear that, Walmart, but it was Crescent's at the time, And it had a plastic, one of these little plastic things, and you could see all the organs in it. You've seen them, and you had to paint them. It was a project, so you paint them all the different colors and stuff. And I got to the one that had the baby in it. The lady you could take it out, and she had a baby, the other one in it. And that was terrible at that time, But I think I was trying to be rebellious. I'm not sure, but anyway. And so what happened was I just became very interested, But I never thought I was going to, be a doctor or anything. I just really liked that, and I liked science. And did well at that in high school. Went to Alabama A&M in Huntsville. Majored in biology and chemistry, dual. And I just thought I would do some research. And that's what I would do. Everybody was talking about research. UAB was doing a whole lot of new things, and it was a growing school, and they were doing a lot of issues with transplants and kidneys and things like that. So I thought I was going to do that. And I also had the opportunity to work with a lady whose name was Dr. Bell, and she encouraged me even more to be a scientist, because she was a scientist, and I worked in her lab as an animal keeper. And so then I tried to find a job right after I got out of school, and I couldn't find one. I never wanted to teach. And so my mother said, you go on and get a teacher's degree, you always can find a job. And I was going to be hard-headed. I just didn't do that. I didn't want to be no teacher. And my sister now did what she said. She majored in math and never taught, because she's worked at NASA the whole time, I had to end up teaching down in a little place right outside of Goodwater, teaching math and science. In the junior 7th and 8th grades. And I did that for that year, but I was constantly looking for a job, and I did get a job. I stayed there 1 year. I got a job in Mayfield, New Jersey, because I lived in Hackensack, at the Pfizer company, in their research, in one of their research units. And I did animal work there. It was everything sort of happened so interesting, and things I never really thought I was going to do. I was there in a very special unit where they had doing leukemia virus work, working with virus. And I stayed there 2 years. And then I lost my job because I was the last people hired, first, you lay off people, the first people to go. I was one of the last ones to be hired. And that's when Nixon saw how old I am, y'all. So that was when Nixon's first time he was president. And he canceled all of the cancer research work, and that was federal funded. But the people there at Pfizer found me another job, and that job was at Columbia Presbyterian and I worked in a very famous person's lab. I said, dog, how I get into all of this? But well, they did a lot of work with postgraduates and to do all that dirt work. We had about 3 people that were paid, and I was one of the paid people. So I stayed there. Had wonderful experience. Met some of the most famous people in the world, and it was just wonderful. And then I decided I wanted to go. Well, what really finalized me to go back to school was that it was one of those labs that they had to put out papers every month. There was paper mills, and I had worked on one particular project for about 6 months, and the guy I was immediately working with put my name as a co-author on the paper, and the head of the department, Dr. Spiegelman, said, "Oh no. Nobody who has anything, and no one with a BS degree would ever be on any of my papers." So I said, wow, this is a dead-end place. I better go back to school, So I was going to go back to school to do a master's. And then the guy said, why are you going to do a master's, Sandral? You're going to go back to school. Go back and do something. So I decided that the 3 things I was interested in. I was taking a course in dress design at this New York dress place. Mm-hmm. And I had finished the first part of it. Second part of it was you to go to Paris or somewhere, and you work in one of these big fashion houses. And I was looking forward to that, but I said, well, and one of my friends said, you better be careful about that because you may end up in a situation where you'll be putting the left sleeve for the rest of your life in the job. So, well, I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So then Dr. Spiegelman wanted me to stay there and go for a PhD program. It was 2 people that came from Pfizer, 2 of us young ladies at that time, and she stayed. One of the other girls stayed. And she got her PhD before I finished medical school. Now, I finished on time now, but what they did was, you had to take the first year, the qualification, and she passed that. And then they allowed her to work on the same projects that she was already doing research on. So she did the oral within a year, you see, because she was already knew, Mm-hmm. So anyway, I didn't take that. I decided I wanted to go to medical school, and so I tried that, and it worked. I got in, and I went to the Medical College of Pennsylvania at that time. That's what I'd say at that time. That was the name. The school no longer exists now. It's Drexel. The Drexel bought the school. But it was 100 years old, and it was one of the last existing all-women medical schools on that time. When I attended, they had just changed the co-ed. So it was a very, very wonderful experience. And for me, it was a great experience because at that time, women were just beginning to increase their numbers in medicine. And MCP had a long history, 100 years of teaching women from all over the world, not just the U.S., but all over the world. And I learned there that you can do anything you want. A lot of people say you couldn't get married, nobody's going to marry you because, you're a doctor, or you were a lesbian because that's all what women want to do, the same thing men want to do, And some women did, they dressed like men because that was acceptable for them to be a doctor, and that's something they really had to just a pure heart for. I mean, I wanted to do it, but I wasn't that pure, So anyway, so what went on, and I learned that you could live whatever life you like, and you could produce, and you could be happy. On Saturdays was very amazing for me. The mothers who, I remember most of the people there were women. And so in leadership roles also, that's another thing. They showed strong leadership. The head of the department were women, they weren't men. And so in all the other places, you never saw that. And one of the doctors who's over endocrinology had 7 children. She would bring them to work with her. They wait till she get through what she finished. On Saturday, they would be taking their children to dance lessons or horse riding. A lot of people rode horses in that area. And they would do that. They come in and do their rounds with the students and, you know, and the interns. And after that, they would leave and go take their children to all those places. So they were women. They had families. They were scientists. They were deans. You could do what you wanted to be. I said, hey, this is good. And so, but before I left there, I realized that wasn't reality, because it was only one school left like that in the country. So, so I would take rotations, knowing I was going to not be in that type when I got ready to be my internship. And it was not that way when you were in other places, you know. And so it was a good learning experience. I thought I wanted to live in the east or the northeast, and I did most of my interviews at first that way. But then I thought about, you know, I want to go back to Alabama. So the best thing, if you're going to go back to a place, it's better to train in that area. So I start looking more this way. I interviewed here and South Carolina, you know, places like that, Mississippi. And this was my third choice. But it was my best. Yeah, I always said, God knows what's going to happen. You know, what happens is supposed to happen. And so this was my third place. But I don't think I could have been more successful and had more opportunities and enjoyed the work I've done in any other place. First of all, I chose family medicine. No one in my, I think it was 2 other people in my class that chose that. It was really looked down on it. And then the school did not have a family medicine department and did not have one until almost 10 years after I left. So it was not considered to be something that smart people wanted to do. And but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I had a preceptor a mentor more or less, and they gave you a mentor in the first year, and you kept that person the whole 4 years. And he was the dean of the Office of Preventive Health. And I liked what he did in preventive health. He did a lot of community-based things, looked at issues. It wasn't family medicine, but it let you see how people live, what they need, and how to work with them. So, but I decided I wanted to do family medicine. And so this was where I came, and Dr. DeShazo showed me around when I first got here. And, you know, and this is something really, I always tell people this because I think it was really funny. And I didn't know who Bear Bryant was because I had left Alabama. I left Alabama in '67, and I came back in '76. So it was 10 years, almost, And so I didn't know anything about that, I knew when I left when people were still integrating things pretty much, so. And so, and that was one of the reasons I left, because I couldn't find a job. When I went to that job down in Rockford down there, I couldn't, I was already told that, we don't really have a place for you. You need to have more experience. And they were hiring people that had no experience. So my thing was to come back to Alabama with experience and double dog dare them to keep me and tell me I didn't qualify. But, by the time I got back, that wasn't an issue for me. Because I knew what I could do. So anyway, so I decided to come back here. I had some more. That was the number. That's the one on the match. That's what I had. Was my third choice. And so when I got here, we were the first class, full 12 members in the class. And I was the only woman. and there were 2 African Americans. And so y'all know, so there was 2 of us, and we were all good friends anyway. But the group was good. We all, our group was really good, the 12. But the people who you hear before were also great. They were open, accepted everybody, and they had to live in a trailer out there, outside, because they hadn't finished the tower. Yeah. And so when I came, they were all concerned, where in the world was I going to sleep? I said, in the bed around here. They couldn't understand that when I went to school, they didn't care where you slept. All you did was find a bed. That was the whole thing. If you could find a bed, it was yours. Whether men in the room or women, it didn't make any difference. And the guys may have had some problems because it was guys who knew, we've been doing that all the time, So anyway, but nobody made any difference of it. So I told him, no problem, I'm sleeping with my clothes on anyway, I have we wear the suits there, the scrub suits, so it didn't make any difference. No. So they put me over at the hospital, in the hospital room with it. It was all right for me because I had privacy and a nice room, and I didn't have to worry about snatching the bed when I could get one, But anyway, but they were real nice. We all were real nice. We ate together. We watched TV together. It was really like a family. And they would bring on the weekends, when we were on weekend call, they bring their families. The guys were ones with married children. They bring them all there, and we had children there, and they would be, we had pizza and all that kind of big stuff. Enjoyed it. We watched Saturday Night Live, and I still do. We all watched it together. It was a big deal to watch Saturday Night Live, and so we did that. We developed, a friendship like sisters and brothers. It was really very good. They're very helpful. The guys decided that if anyone had any, see Herb was big, like he's an ex-Marine, ain't nobody gonna play with him anyway, Yeah. But he was nice. He's a nice guy. So well, they were concerned for me for 2 reasons: because I was a woman and African American. People in the area were not really that, they didn't have many women in the area seeing people. And there were some women down at Partlow seeing people there. Lady been here a long time, I can't remember her name. And then there was another one down back down in Blackbeard sometime at one point. So the question was, the men didn't want women to look at them. And they weren't sure that being African American, you knew what you were doing. So the guys decided that if anybody refused to see me, then they wouldn't see them either. So they were very supportive. This is my team. This is Red Team. And they were very, very supportive. We had 4 teams, and I was in the Red Team.
Did you run into any? You've talked about the college being very supportive, but what about the hospital? I mean, how was that at the time? The hospital staff.
Hospital staff, I was a novelty. Oh, how you doing? So they just wondering what you could do and watching. They weren't negative about it. They just didn't know. They just didn't know how to accept it. You just to see what you could do. And you had to earn people respect and of you as a person and in your skills, even your team members. I had a couple of team members didn't want me to touch any of their people. I said, shut up. I don't think she knows. So. And one time I asked a lot of questions. I did. I ain't going to tell the truth. I did. Because I asked a lot of questions because, when you're uncertain about how people are going to deal with you or something, you want to make sure you're doing it the way they want it done because you don't want to mess up. And so they perceive that as you asking questions because you don't know. So one night I had one person on my team. We were on weekend call, and I really was having difficulty starting a special line. I can't remember exactly what it was. And so I asked for help. And I was first year. He was like second or third year or something. And he just acted all kind of, don't know how to do this, that, and other, so and so, so and so. I told him, I said, you don't have to show me one darn thing how to do it. I go get a book and lay it in front of the table before I let you ask you to do it. And so, and I did. I told him, he came back and said, can I help you? I said, no, you don't need to help me. It's done. And so he was, I think he felt a little bad about it. But, I never asked, I said, I'd never ask you another darn thing while I'm here. I didn't. But what happened was, after about a couple of months, the same person, it was really respect from each other. If somebody asked you to cover with their patient, if they were going to be out or something, and said, will you cover my patient this weekend or something like that. He came and asked me to cover his patient. I said, me? You want me to cover your patient? From then on, he never said anything else bad again. But I did cover the patient, but I was tempted to say, no, I won't do it. But, some people have a lot of skills in other things and certain things, especially surgical stuff and all like that. And it was just some of our exposures were different, But in the meantime, we end up all stayed together, worked together, helped each other when there were any problems, personal problems, any kind of thing. It was just our family. So we were like a family team and a family practice. I enjoyed it. So when we left, people went in all different directions. I don't think I've seen all of them at one time since we left. When we first left, a lot of people used to come, to the, what they do there every year that when they had a show. Lampoons, yeah. About the first 3 to 4 years, everybody showed up. But then as, people started having families and living distances away and doing more things in their practices or leaving their practices and doing something else, people kind of drifted off, including me. I hadn't been to one in a long time.
Well, why did family medicine interest you to begin with?
I just thought it was, when you look at all the parts and you put them together. And I just saw it as a unified thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what people wanted, and that's what I thought I wanted. They like to see someone that can talk to and get some basic understanding of what's happening to them. And so that's what I like the most. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize it was going to be as difficult as it was. No, I say difficult. It's just that, when you live I wanted to live in a small town. I had planned to live in a small town. My parents are from Lowndes County, and my grandfather was still living at that time in Colorine. And my cousin, who was the sheriff down in Lowndes County, all of them were expecting me to come back and work in that area, which still doesn't have. Well, they have one, I think 1 or 2 full-time people there now, but they go off for long periods of time without anybody. But I started working with Dr. Staggers, who was from Greene County, and he came up and was a preceptor to the groups. When they have the community person that's there working with them on 1 day a week, he come up. And so at that time, we were required to work a month away from the university in a small town. It was a requirement. You didn't just have a little say, I'm not going to do it. And people with families would bring their families with them. The community usually would have a house somewhere. And so I went down and stayed worked in his office with him and worked in the little hospital and loved the people when I met him there. I had a National Health Service Corps obligation, and Greene County would take care of that. Lowndes, I decided I would stay in Greene and finish my obligation, and then go down into Lowndes County. Well, I didn't. I stayed. I had a 2-year obligation to the National Health Service Corps, and I paid that obligation. And then I volunteered for another 2 years. And then after that, I stayed. I got a contract with the people I was working with. So I stayed there, and I just got an opportunity to do so many things and to make a big difference in the area. So I decided I really wanted to stay. Dr. Staggers was there as Dr. What's his name? I think of his name and just keep that blanket in. And Dr. Joe P. Smith. Dr. Smith was 3 of them down there when I got there, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. It's 4 people, so you got 1 week and 1 weekend. Dr. Smith retired in 2 years, 2 weeks after I got there, so we went back to 3 again.
So how long were you there?
How long I worked there? I still live there. So,
How long did you work there? I'm sorry.
From 1979 to 2001. About 20, what's that, about 22 or something? 23, I don't know.
I'm not a math person.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
That's right.
I think it's about 23 or something like that. It says, let's see, 79 and 2001 is 22. Yeah, I think it's about 22 years.
And then did you move on to Cooper Green after that?
To 2001, I started working in Cooper Green. At Cooper Green, I was supposed to be there 6 months. We were having problems getting outpatient and subspecialty offices. When it wasn't any problem in those first 21 years, because a lot of the people that we referred to were people that taught me, that were trainers. You know, I knew them, they knew me, they knew Greene County. And so they would take people, because what we would do is we tried to be fair. You know, if we had people who had money, we would send them to them, and the ones who didn't, we sent them to them, so that they would kind of cover for the times that they didn't get anybody. The family practice program was just wonderful. They took a lot of people. And the faculty was wonderful. I could call, ask a question anytime. They would stop and take the time to talk to me. If I need to send something for them to look at, they would look at it. And sometimes I would invite them down to come down, and they would. So it was a very good working relationship. I saw a lot of people develop during that period of time and growing and doing all kind of wonderful things, you know.
Do you have any favorite faculty members while you're here? Just any that stood out to you that you developed a bond with, relationship with, or is there any that stood out in particular?
I like most of them. I didn't really do any special bonding with the folks. Dr. DeShazo, if you're going to pick out anybody, he was the one that...
That's one of them.
Dr. DeShazo was like everybody's father, you know. He'd come talk to you and tell you what to do and all that kind of stuff. But Dr. DeShazo probably was the one that I could come right in. And all of the guys who had been here who started up the program were very nurturing and honest to you about what you do. I think honesty is very, if you're doing a bad job, you need to let somebody know they're doing a bad job so they can correct it. You don't want them to think they're doing a good job and they go somewhere and start working for them, make you look like a fool, you know. You don't want that, you know. But they were very good in the older ones to sit down and just talk to you and work out in a way that they treated you in respect. And then some people that were not very respectful to you. Dr. Scutchfield was good too. You know. He's called Scutch, you know. But and what some of the other residents had an issue with him that he was not an MD. What difference? You know, you still got to learn about public health. You have to learn about. At that time, we didn't call it quality, but that's what it was. All those different things, how you relate to the community, how you identify what you're doing, and whether you're making a difference in it. And, you know, are you making any impact in your community? Or is that important to you at all? And so a lot of them didn't see that as a major issue. But I did. I thought it was great. I went on and got a degree in public health after that, a couple of years later.
Well, going kind of way back to growing up in Birmingham, what was it like growing up as an African American in Alabama?
You know, when that's on the way, you think this is the way it's supposed to be, but you knew you wasn't right. You know, you didn't like. As I told you, my father was a barber, and he was very much involved in the civil rights movement. I'm a teenager at that point, and going to, I was 64. I finished finished high school, so I was on my way to. Part of those people that didn't go to school and boycotted and all that kind of thing because of it. But one of the things I had to do was my father was very involved in it, and one of the things they first did was try to get to vote, And so in order to do that, they gave him a booklet, a great big old booklet. And we used to sit down with my father, my sister, and my brother. My father had 7th grade education, but he was a very, very bright man. And my mother went to Spanish high school. But we would hold the book and ask him the questions. You didn't know what questions were going to be asked. They could put a ball of jelly beans on the table, and you had to tell them how many jelly beans were in the table. And if you miss it, then you had to come back again. And so usually that's one of the people who answered all the questions right. So then you get another one, and you have to tell how many jelly beans in there or something like that, So we worked with my father, and he knew every question on that page, and it took us, every evening we would work on it. You never know how many questions they're going to ask you, or they could just ask you one. They asked him 2 or 3 questions, that's all. And he'd been studying for I don't know how long. but he did it. He did it. He got it. But that's how a lot of people did. And, that's kind of annoying to you, And I never thought I would be able to really sit down and talk with people all people in a regular group. Because there was a lot of anger, to see that you were being withheld from getting things, and if I wanted to go to University of Alabama, I couldn't go if I wanted to. We used to go to the Sunday school convention over in Northport, and we had to drive. At that time, nothing was closed. You went straight through that main street. And so the lady we used to call Sister Susie said, one day y'all go to this school. One day we're going to go to this school. Here. She said, don't say it like that. God will, you will go. Ain't that right, Bessie? She named her car Bessie. So she talked to Bessie just like she talked to us. So, you have to get through all of that anger stuff and just decide what you want to do, And the whole thing was you were taught to do your very best and, try to do what you want to do. And we knew that there were black doctors because all the doctors my parents used were black doctors. There wasn't that many in Birmingham, but they figured if one of them was there, you ought to go use them. And so that's where we go. So we did have the opportunity to see. Some kids never saw a black doctor, and you have an opportunity to see them and to talk with them, and they were always encouraging. And the question was, well, where did you go to school? Well, I found out later that the state paid black people to go to school if you went to go to medical school, they paid you to go outside of the state to do it, because it was, they were supposed. I guess this was a law thing. Was it was the state schools, you're supposed to be able to go to it, if that was the only school in to go. So what they would do is pay for people to go to Meharry, Howard, or wherever somebody would take them. So a lot of the older guys went to school that way.
Well, what is your memory of George Wallace's stand at the schoolhouse?
Oh, everybody remember that. You just, think about how bold can he stand up in the door and say that, you can't come. And we pay taxes and everything like everybody else. It's a state school. I don't care what you think about it. It still is a state school. So, at that period, I'm one of them. I was, with the groups of, we're not gonna continue to deal with this stuff. Again, it's the anger thing. But we weren't taught to be angry to burn up things and that kind of stuff. The anger was to ensure that you get the education, you learn the same thing, and you challenge them with their own laws. Mm-hmm. And that's what people start doing. If the law is on the book, then we have to challenge it.
And so what was kind of the differences that you experienced after moving to the Northeast?
Oh, no, they just tease me about my southern accent.
Was there a difference in the way you were treated or the way you were...
No difference in the training. Where I worked at Charles Pfizer, as I told you. And there were only about 3 or 4 black people there, too. Yeah. And they were in the process of integrating their operation. But it was a good experience. Because I'm just going to be, candid with you just the way it was. I never really had any interrelations with other people but people I grew up with. And so, I ended up working with a group of ladies, all of them, and they were from Lithuania and let me see now. I didn't even know anything about Greek Catholics, It was just for me. It was just wonderful, just great learning experience. The Roman Catholic and the Greek Catholic people didn't get along, and so I'm going up, but they both Catholics. One of my friends said, "Shut up, Sandral, you're gonna get into trouble." So Lithuanians and people from Italy, and Italy was Roman, and so English, all over the world. And so here I am in this place with people all over the world. And so I got into this thing of listening to people and how they talk. And I could tell you when I got I love it and still do love public transportation. And so I would get on the train and listen to people talk. And I could know whether they came from New Jersey, Jersey City, or whatever, because I picked up all the little accents. It was just fun, I enjoyed it. I stayed there up in that area almost 10 years.
What made you want to come back to the South?
Because I always planned to come back. I never wanted to go and stay. I got a niece up there. She's going to stay in New York. I know she's going to stay. She loves New York City. She lives in Brooklyn, though. But I never wanted to stay. I lived in New Jersey and worked in New York because I didn't like living in New York. She loves it. And so people have, certain things. But I always enjoyed going. I went up every couple of times, at least 3 or 4 times a month for years, going to a play or going to something, because I did enjoy going to that type of things. But I guess as you get older, you slow up. You don't do it as often as him, but I still go. So, it's just a great place to go and visit.
Changing topics just a little bit. What are your thoughts on the progress that you've seen in rural healthcare throughout your career? Has there been progress?
Well, emphasis has been placed on it for a very long time. When I started working there, if I look at Greene County, it's no different than it was when I stopped. Because when I came there, it was Dr. Staggers, Bentley, and Bellamy, and Dr. Smith, Joe P. Smith. 3 people. They were happy when I came and made 4. And so then he dropped. And then we hired some more people at the Community Health Center. So then at one point it was as many as 5 people that were doing call at the hospital. So, man, we were in paradise, Every 5th weekend, oh, man, that was like being in Birmingham or somewhere, And so, and then they're down now to 2 people again. 2 people. Mm-hmm. Same hospital, same nursing home, and more little business, but So it's not, it's getting bad again. Mm-hmm. We're having a lot of problem having people who want to stay there and work there. As I said, I still live there. I come back on weekend now. I haven't bothered them at the hospital because I said I'm not going to do that. I would work with them, I think, if I did anything in the community health issues, public health thing, education programs, getting people engaged and doing things that were taking care of their health. I still maintain all my, license and DEAs and all those sort of things. I can help anybody. I do my ACLS and all that kind of thing. So I still can do that if they need me. But I don't. I think what happens when you get to my age, most people don't want to work 24/7 all the time. I worked 24/7 for that period of time. And then when I went to Birmingham, it wasn't that much different because I worked a 12-hour day most of the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I worked, when we took over the jail, they didn't have anybody to do the jail. I did the jail for about a year. And I was primary person there, mm-hmm. County jail. Mm-hmm. So carrying the beeper and carrying all the stuff, all of that, I hated it. I never did like it, but I still carry it. I always said, "You don't have your beeper on." I said, "I don't." Sometimes I didn't. But the thing is, I do think there another thing, like in Greene County area, the infant mortality was very high when I came there. In about 6 years, 7 years, we had it down below 2 digits. It's back again over to the digits. The doctors that are there now are not interested in that kind of thing. We were in the community, developed all kind of programs for the youth. We had Robert Wood Johnson grants, Kellogg, Ford. Used to work with Dr. Leeper. Mm-hmm. We had all those programs that we did together, and they all gave some. Gave the community some support, some the future, things they could do, young people and things. So they're back in the same thing, and the cycle is back.
Well, what do you think the college has done to maybe help improve rural health care, or do you think there are challenges before it that it needs to address?
It still has challenges. Mm-hmm. And that is how you can perceive it as something to do. Earlier we were forced to do it, but I didn't care, but the people that were married didn't like it, that they had to stay down there during the week. But they worked it out with their wives. Many of their wives didn't work at that time. A lot of wives working now, but they would go and stay with them so they could see themselves how was it to be in a small town. Small towns can be very nice, and people always say that you don't have nothing to do. We don't have nothing to do down here. You can be so busy you get sick of folks, because whatever you do, you're gonna choose to pick them. You got church stuff, and you got the club, ladies club, and the readers club, and the football kids, and the baseball kids, and the girls with what did they do? Their little cheerleading and all those kind of things. I mean, they're still doing all of that. You're just as busy as you want to be. But there's one guy told me one time, I just don't like this place because it doesn't have enough lights. It's dark here at night, and there's no lights, and there's nothing to do. I said, what you do when you're at home? You go home and watch it during TV, so you can do that anywhere. And one of them was from New York, and they said that, well, in New York it's licensed, and there's so much to do. I said, what did you do in the last 3 weeks before you came down here? He didn't go anywhere the last 3 weeks. Yeah, you have everything. You got plays, you have theater, you have symphony, you have art shows, you have clubs. You mean to tell me for a whole month you didn't go anywhere? Well, they had three events since you've been here. Oh, I didn't say nothing else after that. It just wasn't his crowd, that's all. Mm-hmm. But they can't say it's nothing that happened. It is something happened.
Well, looking at the university and the college today, I know we've come a long way since.
Well, I really didn't answer your question the first time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just thought about it when you said that. I got off on a tangent.
Oh, it's okay.
The issue here is that I think they still the university is still putting the emphasis on rural health and everything, but people are not out there doing it. I mean, you got to get them, keep them in the area, make them develop some relationship with the community. Those kind of things, and I know we're attempting to do it, but I don't know. I can't say too much because I don't know a whole lot about what's happening. I mean, what kind of? I guess people working with Hale County now, maybe Gordo over there. How many other places it work?
Well, as far what are you talking about? Specific program that you're thinking of? Or?
Program that the university the system is working with.
I'm not 100% up to date, but they're doing things. It's just I don't know how effective they are. But I think you're
a lot of that has to do who you're working with too.
Mm-hmm.
And you're working in diverse communities that are showing diversity and don't work together. And until you can work on some kind of project where you're going to get the African Americans and the white people in the areas and the Spanish people, because there are quite a few of them there now, to work together on community health issues. You got to get them sitting together, defining what they want, and then how they can work with it. You don't always bring things to them. You go to them and ask them what do they want, and then try to help them develop.
So on that note, and just interject that the research grants. Just I don't know if you've heard about the community-based participatory research grant. You have heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
So they're just now ramping up, and the idea is that the community members actually bring the ideas and apply for the grant through that department, and then the university works with them to actually do this project. So I think But that's just getting started. That hasn't really started.
Well, that you'll see a big difference when people do that.
I think that'll be interesting.
You have people coming together to sit down and work on something. Not accusing people of things. I worked on a project one time, and the white people were saying that the reason why the black people were sick because they just weren't taking care of themselves, and they were talking about hypertension. And but they both had hypertension. So I mean, what's the excuse? So let's sit down and stop pointing at each other and saying, are we eating too much salt? Is our school program food right? Is the water right in our community? What are they selling in the stores? All this kind of, we could handle that together, you see. But we don't have to point at each other.
Well, in terms of overall acceptance and being an African American doctor in Alabama, I mean, we have come a long way, but do you think there's still areas where we can improve as a community? As a community,
I mean, you are doing well. You still have your classes of 12 people or more. I think it's more now, isn't it? Yes. And the idea is I don't know how you're going to do it, but just to get people to see that it is a viable way to live. And we're going to have to work with the state too, maybe like they say in Huntsville, everybody's going to Tennessee. They train them, they go to Tennessee. Well, Tennessee has a tax deduction. If you work there, you don't have to pay taxes, state taxes. They fix it up for you that want to stay there. And Alabama hadn't done that yet. We got to do more. They have little things, but they're going to have to do something to make people see it as attractive. And once they see it as attractive, they don't have to be people from Alabama. We keep saying if they come from Greene County, they're going to come back. Most likely they're not. I didn't want to come back to Birmingham. I didn't want to see all my relatives there. But the thing about it is if they have places that are comfortable for them, they'll come. And that's what we have to work, do those little special things for them to make them want to work in an area that's small and like people. And they don't teach you to like people in medicine school anymore. You just, you don't even look at them. You come in, hi, Miss Jones, how you doing? And so until we can do that, we don't have some issues. And they complain about nurse practitioners and PA. They look at them. They do look at the people they work with. And so that means a lot to people.
Mm-hmm. I just have one more question, unless y'all can think of anything. I was going to say, what's your interest and involvement with the college today?
Oh, Dr. Stryper, and I was here when I was here, but I was older than he was. He was one of the young folks who just coming in.
I was thinking he must have been a third year when he was an intern, or second year?
I was third year.
Your third year when he
came. Third year. And we kept running into each other in different things over the years, So he has a lot of good ideas. And not being a country boy his life, he's done a whole lot to bring family medicine into the communities, where he was before and here also. It's good for people to understand too, because whether you do it or not, because in the training programs, I had a young man that just made my staff so angry when I was down in Greene County. They wanted to kick him out. He was in UAB. And so why is he down here if he don't want to be here? Just get him out of here. He wanted to be a surgeon. He knew he wanted to be a surgeon, but he didn't want to work in a small town place. He just was forced, he said, to come there. He acted so bad I had to sit down and talk to him. I said, you can be a surgeon and put your sign outside your door and say, I'm a cardiovascular surgeon. Nobody going to walk off the street and say, I want to see you as a cardiovascular surgeon. You get referrals. And if you don't know how to treat other providers and demean them that you're such a big shot, and you got to get them to refer patients to you, you'll starve to death because they'll find somebody else to refer to. And you should be understanding what the issues that they have to go through in these communities to develop a diagnosis, how the patient has to take, what they have to do when they come home, what kind of accesses do they have. You ought to pay attention to those kind of things while you're here. And I told him I was going to send him back to Birmingham, and so he didn't. He decided he was going to stay. Went to Mayo Medical Clinic for surgery. Ended up being a big shot. And he teaches all in his classes. I don't ever want to hear y'all making, what I'm going to say, just making fun of these family practice people. They used to call it, when I was in school, the silver bullet. Here comes the silver bullet. You know the silver bullet got something wrong here. And so he would put somebody out of his class if he saw him doing that. That's only because he realized that he couldn't do it. And he knew what had to be done and learned to respect the people that was doing it. That's what you don't get in Birmingham, the respect. If you get the respect of what you... Most of internists can't do what you do in family medicine because you have to be a multitask person. They have to focus on one thing. They can't be multitask. I'm going to tell you this one. I'm going to quit talking after this. They had this Mexican came in not too long ago, and he had a roach in his ear.
Oh my gosh!
And it was that's very painful because it's moving on the eardrum, and he was in a great deal of pain. And so when the clinic they sent him to was internal medicine clinic. So when the internist realized there was a roach in it, he said, well, I don't take that, we don't do that. Send him over to the emergency room. So they send the man over to the emergency room. He goes over to the emergency room and waits for about an hour in sheer pain for that thing moving around on his neck. They could have put some oil or something in it to kill it. Why it was all they had to do was just pull it out at that point, if they didn't want to try to pull it out. So I thought just flush it out. All they do. That's all they had to do, So then the emergency people got angry. Well, why they send that thing over to me? Sending a bug over here. We're too busy to be trying to deal with a bug. They have ENT over there. Send him to ENT. So then he left to go and see ENT. Somebody called me at the office and they were so upset. They said, this man been down here over 3 hours trying to get a bug out of his ear. And nobody would do it. I said, do I need to come down there? She said, I tell them you're coming down. And so she called me back, you don't have to come. They're working on it. But you see what I'm saying? The people, and I had all the internal medicine people learn how to take a roach out of the ear after that. They were very angry with me. Because I was a family medicine person making them learn how to take I put an edict in that and told them, y'all better learn how to take these things out of folks' ears. I dealt with it on the financial thing and the patient's service. And that man went to 3 different doctors. And then they're gonna try to put a file, gonna send a bill on each one of them. I said, y'all crazy, because they had to work him up to medicate on you. That's your fault. But I'm just saying that there are a lot of things we have to do yet. A lot of things. And a lot of things that we've learned so much and have so much new science that we can do great things as physicians in the field of medicine. But there still is that primary source where people enter, and they have to have someone who can deal with multiple things to send them where to go, if they can't do it. But many of the things most people do, a good family physician can do. So we can always have a place. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you could give just a piece of advice or guidance or insight to the medical students today, what would it be?
I guess my thing is do what you think is going to make you happy. And if you're dealing just for money, man, there's a lot of ways to make money easier than what you have to do here. This is not an easy way to make money. You'd be surprised to see what people make on some of these things. Be a lawyer. Look at what they're doing in Birmingham. They get folks getting $500 an hour. That's average, you know. That's average. $500 an hour. And they have people on the payroll getting $1,000 an hour. Say, some big time surgeon you might be able to do it, but no, that's only other people. The surgeons are the only other people make that kind of money. And so, some of these people that want to be cute, you know, just do what you enjoy. Find your niche, and don't do it just for money. I guess they said, well, you know, she never had any money, that's why she don't want it. But just do what you think is best.
That's a good way to end. Yeah.
Well, thanks
you very
for
much.
speaking with us.